They say a wedding is the happiest day in a girl's life. Flowers, a white dress, champagne clinking in crystal glasses, and a promise of eternal love, sweet as honey on the lips. For most, this is true, but not for Lina Revsky. For her, this wedding was a sentence. Her younger sister, Elisa, was marrying Daniel Sokolov, the man Lina had loved her entire conscious life, the man who never saw her as anything more than a best friend. Today, Lina would have to smile, hide the pain, pretend her heart wasn't tearing apart with every glance at the happy couple. This wasn't a celebration. This was a burial of her hopes. She knew Daniel first, loved him first. But he chose Elisa, the younger sister, the golden girl who always got everything she wanted. Lina had accepted it, or thought she had. She believed nothing hurt more than unrequited love. But fate had a lesson prepared for her. Somewhere in the depths of Pine Pass forests, among ancient pines and autumn mist, something waited for her. Something wild, something primal. Eyes cold as winter ice would soon find her in the darkness, and Lina would understand a terrifying truth. Unrequited love is nothing. Nothing compared to being too desired. Being prey to a creature whose love is primal and relentless. Being the obsession of one who's ready to consume you whole. Chapter 1. Toast on the Terrace. The autumn evening painted the sky in colors of decay. Amber and copper, crimson and gold. Leaves swirled in the air like a final dance before the long sleep. Lakeside Manor greeted guests with the warmth of fireplaces and clinking glasses. The wedding weekend at Pine Pass had begun. "Friends," Daniel Sokolov's voice rang out over the quieted crowd. "May I have your attention for a moment?" He raised a champagne flute, and sunlight played on the crystal facets. Lina Revsky stood at the edge of the terrace. Her fingers gripped her glass so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her gaze was fixed on the groom, on his perfect smile, on the light hair styled with casual elegance. Beside him, Elisa glowed. A peach dress hugged her figure. Blonde curls cascaded over her shoulders. They looked like a picture from a glossy magazine. Barbie and Ken, the perfect couple, and completely out of reach for Lina. "I want to thank everyone who came to Pine Pass," Daniel continued, embracing the bride around her waist, "to share these special days with us." Lina's mother, Elena Revsky, sobbed into a lace handkerchief. "Only our dear Danny is worthy of our Lisa," she whispered, loud enough for half the guests to hear. Lina clenched her teeth. She knew every word of this speech, because she'd written it herself. 3 days ago, Daniel had begged for her help. "Bill, you know I'm not good at this stuff. Help me, please." Those puppy dog eyes, that helpless smile. She'd never been able to refuse him. Hadn't refused at 8 when he'd called her to ride bikes around the neighborhood, even though she hated bikes. Hadn't refused at 16 when he'd called at midnight, pouring his heart out after breaking up with yet another girlfriend. Hadn't refused at 17 when he'd asked her to write his essays, because he was too busy with football. She'd loved him since the first day they met. From the moment the 8-year-old boy moved into the house next door and smiled at her dazzlingly. At 12, Lina had made a decision with the absolute certainty of a child. She would marry him. She loved Daniel Sokolov with all her heart, and she hadn't refused when, at 19, he'd asked, "You wouldn't mind if I asked Elisa out on a date, would you?" Elisa, her younger sister, 15 months younger. The golden girl who'd spent her whole life effortlessly collecting everything Lina had ever wanted, including the love of her life. Daniel looked across the room, straight at Lina, and winked, air stuck in her throat. "My beautiful bride." Danny's voice became softer, more tender. "Thank you for making all my dreams come true. I promise to spend the rest of my life making you happy." The room erupted in applause. Lina felt something tightening in her chest, something breaking with a quiet crunch. "And I promise you'll never see me cry," she thought, clenching her fist. Years of hope. Years of believing that one day he'd see her. Really see her. It was over. In a week, he'd marry her sister. And nothing could change it now. "Excuse me," Lina muttered. setting down her untouched glass. I need some air. No one noticed her slip away from the terrace. No one turned around. She was invisible, even at her own sister's wedding. Chapter 2. In the shadows of the forest. The setting sun turned the lake into molten gold. Autumn leaves blazed on the trees. Orange, crimson, copper. As if the forest was burning in the last rays of day. Lina stopped at the edge of the manicured lawn, where grass gave way to wild thickets. The forest beckoned with coolness and silence. Just for a minute, she thought. Just to breathe. She stepped under the canopy of trees and exhaled with relief. The coolness embraced her flushed face. The scent of pine needles and decaying leaves filled her lungs. There were no fake smiles here, no pitying looks. Just the forest. Just silence. Lina walked without choosing her path. Thoughts swirled in her head like fallen leaves in the wind. God, why am I like this? Why am I still clinging to a childhood crush? He was marrying her sister. Her sister, for God's sake. Any normal person would have let go long ago. But not her. Not pathetic Lina Revsky. She still hoped, still believed in miracles. Pathetic. Lina stopped and looked around. The light was fading fast. Trees thickened around her, turning into dark silhouettes. The path had disappeared. Shit, she breathed. Her heart beat faster. She'd gone too far. Lost in her own thoughts and in the forest simultaneously. Hey! Lina called into the void. Is anyone there? Only an echo answered her. Mocking. Multiplied. Anyone. 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 It's okay, she muttered to herself. Just walk straight. You'll get out eventually. But with each step, the forest became stranger. Pines loomed higher. Undergrowth thickened. Moonlight barely penetrated the canopy. Shadows moved and flickered, creating the illusion of living beings. A branch cracked, loud, sharp. Lina froze in place. Silence pressed on her eardrums, filled her ears with the hum of her own blood. And then she heard footsteps, slow, measured, heavy. Someone was walking nearby. Who's there? Her voice trembled traitorously. The damp air swallowed the words, not letting them echo. Lina quickened her pace, but the feeling of an alien gaze only intensified, as if invisible eyes were watching her every move. The air became electrified, heavy, viscous. Hair stood up on her arms, the crunch of leaves behind her. Very close. She whirled around and caught a glimpse of a shadow. Huge, dark, fast. Too large for a fox. Too fast for a human. The shadow slid between trees and dissolved into darkness. A sound came from the thicket. Low, guttural, primal. A growl. Lina recoiled, pressing her hand to her throat. Fear squeezed her lungs with icy fingers. Something rustled in the bushes to the right. She tensed, ready to run. A rabbit burst from the undergrowth. A gray ball of fur shot past her feet and disappeared into the darkness. A laugh escaped Lina's chest. Hysterical. Relieved. God, she whispered, pressing her palm to her wildly beating heart. Just a rabbit. Just a damn rabbit. She exhaled, turned, and froze. Before her, silent as a ghost, stood an enormous white wolf. Its eyes glowed in the darkness with an unnatural light. Ice blue, inhuman. They looked straight into her soul. Chapter 3. Touch a scream tore from Lina's throat before she could stop it. Hoarse, animal, full of terror. Instinct took over. She fell to the ground, curling into a protective ball. Arms covered her head and face. What do you do when you meet a predator? Stand still? Run? Scream? Her heart pounded so hard it seemed like it would burst from her chest. Don't show fear. You definitely can't show fear. But how? When you're already trembling all over? Lina waited. Waited for pain. Waited for sharp fangs to close on her throat. But seconds stretched, turned into minutes. She remained motionless, lungs burning from lack of air. Maybe if I don't move, The beast will lose interest? Maybe it'll leave? Something cold and wet touched the back of her hand, a nose. The wolf was sniffing her, studying, tasting her scent. Every muscle in Lena's body turned to stone. Oh God, oh God. It's deciding where to start. But the nose pulled back, slowly, carefully. Lina lowered her arms an inch, then another and another, and met the wolf's gaze. Something changed in her chest. Fear didn't disappear, but transformed, turned into something else, unfamiliar, awe. Its fur wasn't purely white. Up close, silvery iridescence played in it, as if moonlight had frozen in every strand, and the eyes, God, those eyes. Blue as glaciers high in the mountains, deep as the winter sky before dawn, and full of such intelligence that her breath caught. This wasn't the gaze of an animal. This was the gaze of someone. Someone thinking, aware. The longer Lina looked into those incredible eyes, the stronger the certainty grew. This creature wasn't going to harm her. She slowly lowered her arms completely. A shiver ran through her body, but not from fear, from something entirely different. Her hand reached forward on its own, without conscious decision, without thought, as if an invisible thread was pulling her toward this creature. The wolf tilted its head, offering its muzzle to her fingers. The touch shook Lina to her core. Its fur wasn't coarse, as she'd expected. It was silky, soft, warm, as if she were running her fingers over the most expensive fabric. Her fingers sank deeper. She felt the hardness of muscles beneath the fur, the heat of living skin, the pulse of blood in veins. A sound escaped the wolf's chest. Not a growl. Something deep, vibrating. Almost pleased? The rumble echoed in her ribcage, in her belly, in her very heart. "You like that?" Lina whispered. Her voice sounded strange, hoarse, intimate, as if she were saying something very personal. The wolf's ears twitched at the sound of her voice. Its eyes closed briefly, and Lina saw an expression on its face that shouldn't be there. Pleasure, almost human. Is this someone's pet? But looking at its size, almost as big as a small horse, at the wild grace of its movements, at the incredible intelligence in its gaze, she understood. This wasn't an animal that could be tamed. This wasn't a beast that could be kept in a pen. The wolf moved closer, even closer, its massive head bent to her neck. Its nose touched the skin at the base of her throat. Lina's heart jumped, but not from fear, from something new, frightening, and surprisingly alluring. She should be terrified. A predator's fangs inches from her jugular. One movement, and it would all be over. But she wasn't afraid. Not at all. Her fingers continued their journey through the thick fur. The wolf inhaled deeply, absorbing her scent. And then its tongue slid across the skin of her neck. Warm, wet, rough. Lina flinched from the unexpected tickle. Laughter escaped on its own, quiet, surprised. "I'm Lina," she said, unable to suppress a smile. It was absurd to introduce yourself to a wild beast. And yet it seemed the most natural thing in the world, as if she was supposed to do it. The wolf tilted its head to the side. The gesture was so humanly curious that Lina's breath caught. "Do you understand me?" She laughed quietly at the absurdity of the situation. "I don't suppose you know the way back to the manor. But if you could show me—" The wolf turned sharply and took several measured steps forward, then stopped, looked back, looked at her over its shoulder with obvious impatience. "You," Lina blinked, "you want me to follow you?" The wolf nodded its head meaningfully again. Actually nodded. Humanly. "I've completely lost my mind," Lina muttered, uncertainly getting to her feet. Her knees trembled. Her heart still beat too fast. But she followed the white wolf into the darkness of the forest. Maybe it was a hallucination from stress. Maybe a nervous breakdown. But right now, she didn't care. They walked in silence. The wolf moved ahead soundlessly, like a ghost, only occasionally looking back to check if she was following. Every time Lina slowed down, doubting, the wolf stopped and looked at her with the same commanding gesture. "Come." And she came, not understanding why, not asking questions, simply trusting this incredible creature. Time stretched. It seemed they walked for an eternity, and simultaneously just a minute. And then light broke through the trees, the lights of the manor. Relief flooded through her so powerfully that Lina almost fell. "Lina!" A voice rang out in the darkness. "Lina! Where are you?" It was Daniel, worried, loud, familiar. "Here!" she called without thinking. "I'm here!" A low growl sounded behind her, sudden, furious. Lina turned. The wolf was retreating into the shadows. Its gaze was fixed on something behind her, on the source of the voice. Unmistakable hostility churned in those ice-blue eyes. "Wait," Lina began, reaching out. But the wolf had already turned and disappeared into the darkness between heartbeats, as if it had never been there. A strange feeling of emptiness spread through her chest, as if something precious had been taken from her. "Are you okay?" Daniel burst from behind the trees, grabbing her shoulders. "What happened? Your dress is all muddy." "I just got lost," Lina answered, not taking her eyes off the place where the wolf had dissolved. The truth about the encounter stuck in her throat. He won't believe it. No one will believe it. She barely believed it herself. "Good thing you're safe." Danny's hand touched hers, but it caused no goosebumps, no trembling, nothing. Strange, Lina noted distantly. Before, any touch from him made her heart race. And now, nothing. They returned to the manor. Elisa stood on the back terrace, arms crossed over her chest. Her face expressed cold irritation. "She's found!" she called to their parents over her shoulder, then turned her gaze to Lina. "Could you just once not draw attention to yourself? This is my wedding week." Lina opened her mouth, but no words came. "I wasn't trying to—" "You knew people would worry if you disappeared," Elisa interrupted, voice rising. "Just try to stay out of the way, okay? At least this week?" Lina swallowed a defensive response. This week should be about Elisa. It's her wedding. Don't ruin it. Don't draw attention. Be invisible. As always. "Sorry," she said quietly. Elisa snorted and disappeared inside. Several hours later, after a long shower, Lina stood at her bedroom window, about to close the curtains, and froze. At the forest's edge, illuminated by moonlight, stood the white wolf. Its eyes sparkled in the darkness like two blue stars. It was looking straight at her window, straight at her. Their gazes met across space and darkness, lingered for a long moment. Something unspoken passed between them. Connection, recognition, promise. And then the wolf turned and dissolved into the night, like a ghost. Lina pressed her palm to the glass. Her heart beat like it never had before, not even when she looked at Daniel. "Who are you?" she whispered into the void. But there was no answer. Only silence, only night, and the strange sensation that her life had just changed forever. Chapter 4. The Wolf. The wolf watched from the shadows as she disappeared into the house with the male. With that male, his prey finally found. Her scent had drawn him across the entire territory, sweet as wild honey mixed with wildflowers, but with an undertone of salt, tears, the scent of vulnerability. When the wolf first saw her in the forest, something dark and primal stirred inside. Hunger, not physical. Something else, deeper. This woman, this female. The scent of fear on her skin was intoxicating. "She belongs to me," the instinct was absolute. "Will belong completely." He'd approached carefully. Humans scare easily. Run. And he didn't know if he could restrain himself if she ran. The hunting instinct might take over. When she curled into a ball, a wave of power overwhelmed him. "She knows who I am. What I can do to her." He lowered himself. Not submission, calculation. A predator's patience, playing on the prey's trust. He saw how her eyes softened, how easily she fell for the illusion of his gentleness. He was pretending, licking, nuzzling, all for one purpose, to gain trust. Study weaknesses, Mark territory. Now the wolf paced the forest edge, muscles tense, claws digging into earth. He'd let her go with another male, with the one whose very existence was an insult. The male who touched what didn't belong to him. Wrong. That male's scent clung to her skin. He touched her, embraced, kissed her forehead. Touched what only the wolf had the right to touch. A growl rose in his chest, teeth clenched. The need to track, pursue, destroy. It pulsed in his blood, demanding action. The human believed she'd been saved, that she'd been found and returned to safety. Foolish, naive. She didn't understand the truth. She was never lost to him. The forest was his domain, his territory. He'd allowed her to leave, for now. But this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning of the hunt. Chapter 5. Dream. The forest embraces Lina like a living thing. Moonlight breaks through branches, leaving silver patterns on skin. There's no fear, only a strange feeling of rightness, because the white wolf walks beside her, silent, majestic, protecting. In a small clearing, moonlight spills like liquid silver, and suddenly, Lina finds herself on her back among soft moss. The creature's muzzle presses to her neck. Its tongue slides across the skin of her throat, causing shivers throughout her body. Fingers weave into silky fur. The wolf presses closer. A sound escapes its chest. Deep, satisfied, almost human. Its presence envelops her completely. Heat, safety, desire. Lina! A voice carries across the clearing. Deep, rich, magnetic as a lodestone. Lina! Calling again, closer now. The fur under her fingers disappears. Her palms meet warm, smooth skin stretched over hard muscle. Strong arms wrap around her waist, pressing her to a broad chest. A heartbeat drums under her ear. Strong, steady, alive. She opens her eyes and sees ice blue eyes, human eyes. But something wild glimmers in their depths. Predatory, untamable. Large hands bury themselves in her hair, tilting her head. Lips descend to her lips. Lina sat up in bed with a sharp intake of breath. Sheets tangled around her legs. Skin damp with sweat. Her heart pounded as if she'd run a marathon. She pressed trembling fingers to her lips. The dream had seemed so real. She could almost still feel the warmth of male skin on her palms, the taste of his kiss on her tongue. Lina fell back on the pillows, trying to slow her pulse. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw those blue eyes, looking at her with hunger, with recognition, with promise. An hour later, Lina still couldn't sleep. Her skin burned as if with fever. Her body demanded movement, air, space. She looked out the window. The world beyond the glass was still wrapped in pre-dawn shadows. I'll take a walk, just for a few minutes. Lina pulled on a light jacket over her nightgown, more from habit than necessity. Her skin still burned from within. Outside it was cool, grass wet with dew, but Lina wasn't cold at all. On the contrary, the coolness brought blissful relief. Her feet carried her across the manor grounds, not toward the forest, toward the sound of surf at the edge of the property, where manicured gardens gave way to wild thickets. Lina found stone steps carved into rock. They spiraled down to what appeared to be a secluded cove. Faint violet light of approaching dawn illuminated the private beach below. Movement caught her eye, a flash of white on dark sand. The wolf! It stood at the water's edge, waves lapping at its paws, looking into the distance as if contemplating the horizon. Something in its stillness spoke of deep thought, of loneliness, of longing. And then the impossible happened. Between heartbeats, the wolf's figure blurred. Its outline rippled like a reflection in water. A transformation occurred, quick, smooth, mesmerizing. And where the animal had stood, now stood a man, tall, powerful, completely naked in the dim light of dawn. Lina blinked rapidly, certain her eyes were playing a cruel trick. Wolves don't become people. It doesn't happen. Can't happen. But he stood there, water swirling around his ankles. The first rays of dawn outlined the planes of his back and broad shoulders. Lina! Elisa's voice behind her made her jump. The man below turned sharply, and for one breathtaking second, his face was in the light. He was beautiful, with that wild, unbridled beauty that makes the heart skip a beat. High cheekbones, hollow cheeks, dark hair falling over his forehead, and eyes. God, those same eyes, piercingly blue, icy, recognizable. The eyes from her dream. What are you doing here? Elisa grabbed her shoulder, forcing her to turn around. Lina looked back at the beach, but the man had vanished. The cove was empty. Only waves rolled onto the sand, erasing tracks. I couldn't sleep, Lina managed to say. Elisa surveyed Dawn Cove with interest. Oh my God, is this a private beach? Let's go down. She grabbed Lina's hand and pulled her toward the steps. They descended to the shore. Elisa chattered nonstop about childhood memories, about vacations at the sea, about their father who slathered them with sunscreen every hour. Remember? You never needed it. You're the only one of us who never got sunburned. Lina barely heard. Her gaze was riveted to the spot where the man had stood. Or the wolf. The wet sand showed nothing. Tracks, if there had been any, were washed away by water. The first rays of sun broke over the horizon. Gold and pink exploded across the sky. Dawn Cove caught the light in such a way that the place seemed enchanted. That's it, Elisa breathed with delight. We need to have the ceremony here. Can you imagine? Sunset, the sea, me in my dress? Lina didn't answer. A strange tremor ran down her spine. She approached the water's edge, to where he had stood. No tracks, nothing. As if he'd never been there. Maybe I really am going crazy. The rising sun turned the sea to fire. And beneath the sound of waves, Lina could have sworn she heard a barely audible echo of a howl. Mournful, lonely, calling. Chapter 6. Return. Lina, I still can't believe how perfect this is, Elisa exclaimed, leading Era, the wedding planner, along the winding path back to the main manor. Era Northern was a woman of about 30, with dark hair and a sharp gaze. The rocks will protect from the wind, and the view... Elisa threw up her hands. Just like from a magazine. Lina trailed behind, barely listening. Every few steps she looked over her shoulder, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. The morning on the beach had been impossible. The vision kept replaying in her head, the wolf turning into a man with that wild, captivating beauty, with blue eyes she'd seen in her dream. It was him. Definitely him. I don't understand why she wants to change everything, Daniel muttered, falling back to walk beside Lina. He rolled his eyes. Everything was decided months ago. She's never satisfied, you know. Always changing things at the last minute. Lina didn't answer immediately. Daniel nudged her side playfully. You're nothing like that. Always calm, level-headed. He put his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close in that familiar gesture. The one that used to make her heart race. Now it was already pounding, but for a different reason. Because she felt a gaze on her. Burning, intent, possessive. Lina scanned the tree line, searching for a flash of white among the shadows. What are you looking for? Daniel asked, pulling her from her thoughts. Nothing, Lina answered hastily. Just distracted. The last thing she needed was for Elisa to decide she was going crazy, especially so close to the big day. Sorry, I'm just thinking, Daniel laughed, pulling her closer. Can't have my best friend getting distracted. You need to be on your game for the wedding. He kissed her forehead, a familiar gesture that used to warm her. Now it caused nothing. Only slight discomfort. They caught up with Era and Elisa at an overlook above the manor. Elisa was pointing at Dawn Cove enthusiastically. The sunset there was just breathtaking. I bet the evening light will be even more impressive. Her eyes blazed with excitement. We absolutely need to move the cocktail party there. It would be criminal not to use that spot. Era's expression remained professionally neutral, but Lina noticed how her gaze lingered on Daniel's arm around Lina's shoulders. Something like surprise flickered across the planner's face. Lina felt embarrassed for no reason. She pulled away from Daniel slightly, though she couldn't explain why his touch suddenly felt inappropriate. So, Elisa finished with an expectant smile. Can you make it happen? Ira winced. I'm afraid that's impossible, Miss Revsky. She shook her head slowly. The budget will cover any additional costs, Daniel interrupted, making Elisa beam. Money's no object for something this important, right, Era? Era bit her lip. But I'm afraid it's not just about the budget. On such short notice. And Lena can help with whatever's needed, Elisa interjected, waving toward her sister. She doesn't have anything else to do this week anyway. Lena opened her mouth to object, but the words stuck in her throat, because the sensation of an alien gaze intensified 100-fold. Goosebumps ran across her skin. She scanned the trees again, searching for… what? The wolf? The man? Or both at once? I'm going crazy, making up impossible creatures with impossible abilities. Lena! Elisa's sharp voice brought her back to reality. Are you even listening? Sorry, what? You're impossible, Elisa rolled her eyes. You promised to help me. Era looked genuinely concerned. I apologize, but while we do rent out the estate, that cove is closed for events. But doesn't all of this belong to your family? Daniel asked, gesturing broadly at the grounds. It does, Era confirmed. She was clearly hesitating. But what's the problem? Elisa insisted, crossing her arms. Era sighed heavily. Technically, the land, the manor, the beach, everything belongs to my brother. I need his permission to host an event on that beach. Well then, Daniel said with the easy confidence of someone unused to hearing no. Let's talk to him. Era began slowly, as if talking to a child. My brother will never agree. What do you mean? Daniel blinked. Can't you convince him? Neither I nor anyone else can make my brother do anything. A note of finality rang in Era's voice. He's the head of the family. His word is law. Daniel and Elisa exchanged glances. Well, let's at least ask him ourselves, Daniel suggested. Maybe we can persuade him? I doubt it, Era muttered. What? Elisa asked sharply. Era forced a smile. You can try. Great. Let's go right now. Elisa was already turning toward the main house. He'll only be available this afternoon, Era said quickly. And unfortunately, we have a meeting with the caterers. Elisa groaned. Lina jumped at a sound behind her, a branch cracking. She whirled around, peering into the forest edge, certain that something was there. Lina can go, Daniel suddenly said, grabbing her shoulders. Where? Lina asked, confused. Were you not listening at all? Elisa rolled her eyes. You're so absent-minded sometimes. Are you okay? Era studied Lina's face with concern. You look pale. I'm fine, Lina answered automatically. Well, where am I going? She barely caught the answer, because her attention was drawn to movement at the forest edge. A figure suspiciously resembling a large white wolf slipped between the trees. Can Lina meet with him at 3 o'clock? Daniel was asking Era. The question hung in the air without answer. When Lina glanced at Era, she found the woman's attention fixed on the same spot in the forest. Her expression had become wary, tense, almost frightened. And Lina couldn't help but wonder, had she seen the wolf too? But she didn't dare ask. Fear of confirming her madness was too strong. Chapter 7. North Wind Manor. The wolf paced back and forth across the study. Claws clicked on the wooden floor. He doesn't belong here. Too close. Too dangerous. But the desire was unbearable. Her scent called to him, sang in his blood, drove him mad. When she disappeared into the main house, something inside tore. Separation caused physical pain. He circled the property twice before slipping through her half-open window. Now she was everywhere. Honey, salt, something unique, her own scent. He buried his muzzle in the sheets, inhaling deeply. The fabric still held her body's warmth. Strands of dark hair lay on the pillow, a whisper of lavender and something floral. He ran his nose over the place where her head had rested, imagining. The wolf moved restlessly around the room, absorbing scents through objects she'd touched. A discarded nightgown smelled of sweat and feminine warmth. But then another scent appeared, barely perceptible. Male. That male who touched her, embraced, kissed her forehead. A growl rose from his throat, low, threatening, furious. The desire to destroy, to erase all traces of the foreign male burned within. He quickened his pace, circle after circle. She'll return, and then instinct demanded action. Claim her, mark her, make her his forever. A vision seized him. He lunges forward the moment she enters. Teeth sink into her throat, hard enough to break skin. The taste of her blood seals the bond between them. At first she resists. They always resist. But then she surrenders. Her body recognizes what her mind cannot understand. She belongs to him. Always has. Jaws open in anticipation. He breathes heavily, trying to control himself. The vision consumes completely. Her quiet cries, the change in scent, his mark on her skin, his, completely and utterly. A sound outside, voices, not hers. The wolf circled the room again. Need to leave proof, show ability to provide. Gripping the offering in powerful jaws, he placed it under the bed, hidden from others. But where she would find it? Every instinct screamed, "Stay!" But he couldn't. Too risky. "I'll return tonight." The wolf slipped out the window as silently as he'd entered, leaving behind only the scent of wild forest and a promise of return. Several hours later, Lina sat in Era's elegant black car. They wound along a narrow road going deeper into the forest surrounding Pine Pass. "You're wasting your time," Era warned with a crooked smile. "My brother will never agree to your sister's request." "I've had worse," Lina shrugged. Era threw her a surprised look. "I admire your patience with her." A pause. "But is that how your family works?" Lina sighed. "Elisa's spoiled, but well-meaning. It's just not always obvious. Does she know you're in love with her fiancé?" The question came so unexpectedly that Lina choked on air. Her cheeks flushed. She turned her head sharply toward the window, embarrassed that this near stranger had so easily uncovered her most shameful secret. "Danny and I have been best friends since childhood," she finally managed. "We're like brother and sister." Era's skeptical look spoke for itself. "My brother doesn't look at me the way Daniel looks at you." Lina hurried to change the subject. "You and your brother don't get along?" "Actually, we're very close," Era's voice softened. "He practically raised me after our father died." "I'm so sorry," Lina winced, remembering the recent death of a beloved aunt. "Was he ill?" Era tensed. Her fingers whitened on the steering wheel. Lina realized she shouldn't have asked that question. "In a manner of speaking," Era answered evasively. Before Lina could continue, the car turned onto a long gravel drive. At the end loomed a majestic stone building, North Wind Manor. It stood as if built to keep secrets. Dark stone, ivy creeping up walls with grasping fingers. Windows reflected the gray sky like suspicious eyes. "My brother is expecting you," Era said, stopping the car. "I'll be back in an hour." Inside the manor, twilight reigned. Dark wood paneling, heavy drapes, muted voices. A butler, an elderly man in an impeccable suit, led Lina through winding corridors. She noticed other staff members pausing their work to look at her. Their gazes lingered longer than necessary. Something like recognition flickered in their eyes. Or warning? The butler led her to a waiting room with high ceilings. Rain began drumming on stained glass windows, lending the atmosphere a melancholic tone. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. Lina began to wonder if the master had forgotten about her entirely. When the butler finally returned, his face remained impassive. "He's ready to receive you now, miss." He led her to a study at the end of a long corridor. Behind an imposing desk sat a man, phone pressed to his ear. Half turned away from the door. "I don't care what the board thinks," he was saying. Voice deep, commanding, brooking no argument. "The protected territory is not up for discussion." Lina froze in the doorway. That voice, deep and rich. She'd heard it before, in her dream. Her gaze first fell on his hand, strong, with long fingers that drummed impatiently on the desk. Then, on the line of his shoulders, broad, powerful beneath a perfectly tailored suit. Your rights end at the northern border, he continued irritably. Beyond that is protected land. Period. His profile came into view as he turned slightly. Straight nose, uncompromising jawline. Something fluttered in Lena's chest. Recognition without understanding. Without looking up, he raised one finger, a gesture. Wait a minute. Lina took another step forward, unable to stop herself. We're done discussing this, he cut off. Either you comply with the agreement as written, or we'll see each other in court. At that moment, he turned just enough for her to see his eyes. Icy, piercing, incredibly blue. Lena's lungs refused to work. Her heart pounded wildly in her chest. The room seemed to tilt sideways. Reality warped around an impossible truth. It's him, the man from the beach, the man who was a wolf, the man from her dreams. Here, real, incredibly real. She couldn't move, couldn't tear her gaze from his face. Beautiful, mesmerizing, etched in memory from dawn, striking cheekbones, full lips, now pressed into a serious line, dark hair with gray at the temples. My final answer's no, he said into the phone. Goodbye. He set down the phone and finally turned to face her fully. Have a seat. He gestured toward a chair across from the desk. Voice businesslike, impatient. Lina waited for a flicker of recognition, confirmation that she wasn't losing her mind. But nothing. Not the slightest sign that he'd ever seen her. Even on the beach this morning. If this is him, he doesn't remember me. Kai Northern, the man introduced himself, extending his hand. Lina continued to stare, unmoving. The resemblance was striking. The eye color identical. Do I have something on my face? He asked with slight irritation. When her silence stretched, Lina snapped out of it. No, I'm sorry, His hand clasped hers in a firm handshake. Skin warm. Grip confident. Something about the simple touch made her feel as if she'd found something precious she hadn't known she'd lost. Electricity ran up her arm, rose higher, to her shoulder, to her heart. Her breath caught. Kai pulled his hand back sharply. A slight furrow of confusion appeared on his brow. So, he said, stepping back, my sister says you need to discuss something about an upcoming wedding? Oh, no. Lina shook her head. I mean, it's not my wedding. My sister Elisa is getting married, not me. I'm single. Why did I say that? Kai frowned, looking puzzled. Right, he said carefully. So, you're here on behalf of your sister? Yes, Lina confirmed with relief. But involuntary images of naked Kai at the water's edge flooded her mind. She's enthusiastic about, he prompted with impatience in his voice. Lina cleared her throat, trying to focus. Elisa's wedding. Think about Elisa's wedding. My sister discovered Dawn Cove and absolutely fell in love with the view. She was hoping to host a cocktail party there. No, Kai interrupted with an air of finality. Lina flinched. But you don't even know what I know. And the answer is no. Lina clenched her hands, disappointment rising like a wave. Elisa will be furious. But beyond that, she felt a desperate desire to make him keep talking, to hear that voice, to watch his lips move. I'm sorry, Kai's voice softened slightly at the sight of her expression, but we prefer to keep the cove private. No, of course, Lina nodded quickly, her brain working faster than her mouth. Your morning swim is private. Kai's eyes narrowed dangerously. Excuse me? Lina felt herself blushing. This morning I saw you there. On the beach. Kai fixed her with a long, tense look, studying, wary. Well, if that's everything, he said meaningfully, looking toward the door. I'm Lina, she blurted out, desperately trying to find an excuse to stay. All she got was a curt nod. Nice to meet you, his voice polite but cold. Now, if you'll excuse me, Lina, I need to make a call. He waved toward the door. Detachment radiated from every line of his body. Lina left in a stunned daze. What just happened? She felt rejected. But that's ridiculous. I don't even know this man. And yet, the pain was real. Kai Northern couldn't have been less interested if he'd tried. He was beautiful. Almost surreally so. Those eyes. Who has eyes like that? Lina involuntarily thought of the wolf. He had the same eyes, and it made no sense, None at all. I've lost my mind. Completely lost my mind. Chapter 8. Dead Rabbit. As expected, Elisa threw a tantrum. When Lina returned with Kai Northern's refusal, her sister accused her of everything at once: insufficient effort, indifference to the wedding, sabotage. "You're my maid of honor," Elisa cried, tears welling in her eyes. "You're supposed to fix everything for me." Lina agreed to try again tomorrow. Too easily, maybe suspiciously easily, knowing full well that Kai wouldn't change his mind. But the prospect of seeing him again caused a wave of longing impossible to deny. Now, alone in her room, she couldn't focus on anything but him. When she closed her eyes, she still felt Kai's hand in hers, saw that piercing blue gaze. She paced restlessly, trying to understand the irresistible pull. His scent, woodsy and wild, with hints of something primal that made her mouth water. She still felt it here, in her room, which is impossible. Lina grabbed her nightgown from the bed, buried her face in it, inhaled. Kai's scent had soaked into the fabric. Panic seized her chest. Can't be. I'm going crazy. Since meeting the wolf in the forest, something had changed inside. A knock on the door interrupted her chaotic thoughts. "Lina, you in there?" Daniel's voice. "Come in." He entered with a concerned expression. "You okay? You seem distracted." "Just tired," she lied. Daniel sank onto the edge of the bed with a heavy sigh, ran a hand over his face. Lina tensed, afraid of ruining Kai's scent, his presence on the bed. "This is insane. The bed doesn't smell like Kai." "She's just crazy," Daniel muttered. "Do you think I'm making a mistake?" The question caught her off guard. "What? Do you think I should marry her?" He met her gaze. "Elisa. She's so demanding." "Never satisfied." Lina couldn't answer. "This isn't about what I want. I can't decide for you, Danny." He snorted quietly. "You always have an answer. Always know what I should do." He reached for her hand, took it, skin clammy, grip weak. "You were in love with her." "I know," he interrupted. "You're right, it's just nerves." Nodded to himself. "You're always right, Bill." He brought Lina's hand to his lips, kissed it, a familiar gesture that suddenly displeased her. "I'm going to bed," she said, pulling her hand free. "Didn't sleep well." Daniel nodded, apologizing for intruding, though his voice held hurt. As he stood, he dropped a lighter from his pocket. "Damn!" He dropped to his knees to reach under the bed, and suddenly jerked his hand back with a gasp. "What the—" "What happened?" Lina frowned. Daniel didn't answer. Looked under the bed, cursed again, reached for something. "What the hell is this, Lina?" He waved a dead rabbit in front of her face. The small head hung limply, neck cleanly broken. Blood dried along the fur. Lina recoiled with a scream. Chapter 9. Obsession. The wolf paced the immaculate study, trapped in a cage of flesh and mind, nostrils flared, inhaling her residual scent. Imprinted in memory forever. She'd been here, within reach, and the human did nothing. A growl tore from his throat. He lunged at the chair where she'd sat, buried his muzzle in the fabric, inhaled her essence deeply. Her emotions filled him. Muscles trembled with need. But beneath that lay something else. The unmistakable scent of desire. She wanted them. Her body betrayed her with every quickened heartbeat, every blush on her cheeks. Satisfaction surged. And yet his human half had just sat there. Let her go. The wolf snarled at empty air. Frustration blazed in his chest. How can the human ignore what's so obvious? Why send away what belongs to him? Maybe the human is defective, broken. His pacing became erratic. Thoughts scattered. The human can no longer be trusted. Transformation had become harder. Each time the wolf grew stronger. Returning, increasingly difficult. Soon he'll take control completely. Forever. As it should be. Claws dug into the desk, leaving deep gouges. Wood splintered under savage pressure. Breathing ragged, eyes gleaming in darkness. At least she found the gift. The wolf had watched through the window as she discovered the rabbit. Perfect prey. A worthy offering. But another male had appeared. The one who touched what didn't belong to him. The male with the wrong scent, circling too close, his hands on her body, lips on her skin. Unacceptable. This male was a problem that needed eliminating. Claiming couldn't wait. Separation gnawed like a wound, an emptiness behind his ribs that only she could fill. Only her submission, her blood on his tongue, her body beneath his weight. Soon, one way or another, the male with the wrong scent would learn what happens to those who touch the wolf's property. Chapter 10. Accident. Rain drummed on the windshield in a measured beat. Lina drove along the winding road to Northwind Manor. Gray sky, gray road, gray mood. Everything matched the name of her destination. Her fingers gripped the wheel painfully tight. She was thinking about the rabbit found last night. Daniel had been furious, ready to sue the manor. But the housekeeper had shrugged, blaming wild animals, cats, or maybe a fox. The staff hadn't seemed frightened. For Elisa's sake, Lina and Danny had let it go. But this morning, the manager had brought her rabbit stew instead of the pancakes she'd ordered, insisted she try it, and she'd eaten it, every last bite. Not understanding why, simply couldn't stop. The rain intensified as she approached the gates. She gave her name through the intercom. Lina Raevsky, Era Northern is expecting me. A lie. But mentioning Kai would lead nowhere. The gates opened. She drove along the winding road through the downpour. Something white flashed between the trees. The wolf. Half hidden behind a huge pine, it watched her. Those incredibly blue eyes. Sharp. With eerie intelligence. "You're not real," Lina whispered, gripping the wheel tighter. "Just a dream, a hallucination." As if in response, the wolf suddenly ran onto the road, right in front of the car. "Shit!" Lina slammed on the brakes, jerked the wheel. Tires skidded on wet gravel. The front end crashed into a tree with a dull thud. She was thrown forward sharply. The seatbelt dug into her chest. For a moment, she just sat there, heart pounding, and then panic. Did I hit it? Hurt it? Her fingers fumbled to unbuckle the seatbelt. Lina flung open the door, falling out. "Hey!" she shouted into the rain. "Wolf, are you hurt?" The sound of her own voice calling to a wild animal seemed absurd, but she couldn't help trying. Rain soaked her clothes in seconds. She desperately searched under bushes, around trees. No white fur, no wounded creature, nothing. Lina returned to the car, shivering, tried to start the engine. A groan, a cough, silence. "Perfect," she cursed. She removed her heels, ridiculous shoes she'd worn to impress Kai. Barefoot on the muddy road, she trudged toward the mansion. By the time the building came into view, she'd turned into a drowned rat, hair plastered, makeup smeared, clothes clinging to her body. A black SUV sat in the driveway. Windshield wipers scraped across glass as she approached. The mansion door opened. Kai Northern emerged. Staff rushed to cover him with an umbrella. Lina's heart stopped. Even at a distance, his presence commanded awe. Tall, imposing, immaculate in a charcoal black suit. "Kai!" she called, quickening her pace. "Wait!" He glanced at her, expression unreadable, then turned away as if she didn't exist. "Wait, please?" She ran, half-crazed, soaked through, chasing a man who clearly wanted nothing to do with her. Somewhere deep down, she understood how she must look. Desperate, pathetic. But something primal drove her forward. She needed to see him, talk to him, touch him. To her surprise, Kai stopped, turned with barely perceptible bewilderment on his face. "How can I help you?" Voice polite, but cold. She stumbled, searching for words. "I'm sorry, I know I already asked, but my sister insists. About the beach." "And who are you?" Kai interrupted, frowning. The words hit like a slap. "Lina," she answered quieter than he deserved. "Elisa Raevsky's sister. The wedding?" Kai nodded slowly. Recognition on his face, but not what she'd expected. He doesn't remember yesterday's meeting. She peered into his face, searching for something. Connection. Memory. Acknowledgement that they'd spent an hour together yesterday. But there was nothing in his eyes. emptiness, indifference. "So, what do you want?" Kai asked. Isn't it strange that he doesn't remember me at all? They'd spent almost an hour together the day before. Maybe it's a tactic? A way to get rid of me? Or does he meet so many people he simply forgot? The staff member holding the umbrella stepped forward. "Alpha," he began. Froze, noticing Lina. Cleared his throat. "Mr. Northern," he corrected himself. "We need to go." Kai gave her a dismissive glance. "Make an appointment with my secretary. Or talk to my sister. She handles wedding matters." He turned toward the car. "Wait!" Lina reached for his arm, but her foot slipped on wet gravel. Sharp pain pierced her ankle. She lost her balance, falling. Strong arms caught her, cushioned the fall. "Careful!" Kai barked. His arms held her firmly, supporting her effortlessly. A sound like a growl rumbled through his chest. Irritated, but those incredibly blue eyes were full of concern. Lina went limp in his embrace, gasping, wincing from pain in her leg. Kai tightened his hold, lifting her in his arms as if she weighed nothing. "Are you hurt?" His breath touched her cheek, gaze focused only on her. Her heart skipped a beat. "Sorry, what?" she squeaked. "Your ankle. Did you sprain it?" His frown deepened as he examined her leg. The butler cleared his throat. "Sir, the meeting—" Kai silenced him with a single shake of his head. "It hurts a little," Lina admitted sheepishly. "Perhaps you should have worn different shoes," he said without emotion. But he carried her inside, his warmth penetrating her frozen skin. When he finally set her down on a leather sofa, she immediately felt the loss of contact. Kai knelt before her, lifted her leg with surprising gentleness. His fingers probed the injury with expert precision. "Possibly a fracture," he said when she cried out as he rotated the foot. "Great," Lina snorted, imagining Elisa's horror. "My sister will kill me. A cast will look terrible in photos, and I'm the maid of honor." Kai's brows furrowed, but he didn't comment. Instead, he rose and disappeared through a doorway. He returned with a first aid kit and an ice pack. Wrapped the ice in a towel, carefully applied it to the swollen ankle, then began methodically treating and bandaging. His fingers moved with skill, confidence. Every touch sent shivers across her skin. "Were you a doctor in a past life?" Lina asked, hoping to break the silence. A brief smile appeared on Kai's lips, transforming his stern face. The sight felt like a personal victory. "No," he answered simply. He continued wrapping the ankle in an elastic bandage with expert precision. The silence between them wasn't awkward, rather tense, electrified. "Just useful to know these things," he finally finished, meeting her gaze. Lina got lost in his incredibly blue eyes, like icy flame, rimmed with darker indigo. "I should bring a towel," Kai said, breaking the moment. He looked away, gesturing to someone. A staff member appeared almost instantly with a soft towel. Lina barely noticed him. Her attention was still riveted to Kai. "Sorry for the trouble," she said. "Could I borrow a phone? I had a small accident on your property. Need to call a tow truck." Kai readily agreed, gesturing for someone to bring a phone. "What happened?" he asked, leaning against the desk. "Well," Lina hesitated. "I thought I saw—" She stopped, meeting Kai's gaze. "What?" His eyes were so blue, she couldn't help thinking of the wolf. "I thought I saw a wolf," Lina said carefully. "A wolf," he repeated. His face remained completely impassive. "Are you sure?" "It was raining hard, but—" Lina gathered her courage. "Yes, pretty sure." "Perhaps you shouldn't have been driving in such weather," Kai observed. "Yes, I realize that now," she admitted. "But I needed to see you. My sister Elisa is determined." "I understand," his expression darkened. "But your sister Ira said to ask directly." "Your sister knows what happened on that beach?" The question came out sharp. Lina was confused. "I don't think so. Elisa doesn't know." "Let her find out," Kai stood abruptly. "I doubt she'll want to host anything there when she does." "What happened?" Lina leaned forward despite her injury. Kai handed her the phone, meeting her gaze one last time. "Someone died," he said heavily. Then, without another word, he turned and left the room. Chapter 11. Dream and Reality. Lina wasn't sure how she'd ended up on Kai's leather sofa. "Didn't I go home?" Didn't I listen to Elisa's lecture? But here she was, skin cool against exposed areas of her body, and Kai's lips on hers, hungry, desperate, devouring. One strong hand tangled in her hair, the other slid down her side, fingers dug in with painful force. He held her exactly where he wanted, as if afraid she'd run. "Do you have any idea," he rasped, "how long I've waited for you?" His chest heaved heavily, eyes dark and wild, his heartbeat, a furious drum she could feel through his skin. Lina tried to respond, but he swallowed her breath with a kiss. Fire licked through her veins. Blood boiled. His hands were everywhere, gripping, caressing, claiming. How did we get here? When did we undress? Questions scattered like ash on the wind. Hot kisses trailed down her throat. Teeth scraped tender skin. She arched, surrendering to his incredible strength. His scent, pine, rain. Something untamed filled her lungs, intoxicating. This was madness. But it wasn't enough. This is where I'm supposed to be. With him. Claimed by him. Rightness resonated in every cell. Tears welled in her eyes from the overwhelming perfection. "Kai," she whispered his name. A prayer on her lips, a pained shudder ran through his body. He pulled back, searched her eyes, breathing ragged and uneven. Small jolts rippled beneath his skin. "Not enough," he groaned. His voice trembled. Fingers dug harder into flesh. "I need more. I need all of you." Beads of sweat on his forehead. "Tell me," he demanded, pupils dilated with desire. "Tell me who you belong to." She gasped, made a broken sound, half moan, half growl. "You. I belong to you." Relief flashed across his face, but quickly replaced by something wilder. Teeth grazed her shoulder. Pleasure. A sigh. A moan on her lips, then pain. Sharp, deep, wrong. Pleasure curdled, turning into something terrible. "Kai!" she gasped, and instead of the man, a wolf loomed over her. Eyes of molten gold, muzzle stained crimson. It didn't let go. Fangs sunk deep into her neck. Lina tried to scream, but only a strangled moan emerged. The wolf released her neck, pulled back just enough for her to see its muzzle. A low growl came from its chest. Hungry, unsatisfied. It lunged forward again, jaws wide open, reaching for her throat. Lina's scream finally broke free. She bolted upright in bed with a sharp gasp. Her heart pounded. Sheets tangled around her legs. Cold sweat covered her skin. A dream. It was just a dream. But it had seemed so real. She could almost still feel the warmth of his body, the taste of his kiss, the pain of his bite. Chapter 12, Dead Girl. Isa Lesnaya was 23 when she was found dead at Dawn Cove 10 years ago. The information wasn't hard to find if you knew where to look. Lina stared at a blurry newspaper photograph, her fingers trembling. The girl had been beautiful, until something had torn that life away with horrifying brutality. The article used clinical language, but between the lines, horror read clearly. Deep laceration of the throat, consistent with the bite of a large animal. Body severely mauled. Remains discovered at dawn. Investigation ongoing. Local legend had twisted the tragedy, making it even darker. The librarian spoke in hushed tones. They say the bones were broken in directions they can't naturally bend, like something was playing with her before it killed her. Lina paced the living room. Morning light stretched long shadows across the floor. Her ankle didn't hurt at all, despite yesterday's obvious sprain. Another impossible thing on a growing list. "I shouldn't have let you go," Daniel said. He stood in the doorway, irritation on his face. "It's fine," Lina answered absently. "It healed." A pause. "Danny, have you heard about what happened on the beach at Dawn Cove?" He shook his head, moving closer. "They found a dead girl there," Lina's voice rose. "Killed by a wild animal." Daniel looked indifferent, and she wanted to shake him. She was torn apart, bones broken in all directions. "God, Lina," Daniel winced. "Do you have to go into details before I've had breakfast?" Lina swallowed. "Sorry, but..." If it's true, he sighed, grabbing her shoulders. Accidents happen. It was just an accident. She shook her head. No, it wasn't an accident. She knew, absolutely knew. Kai didn't think of it as an accident. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said it the way he did. You have nothing to worry about, okay? Danny's voice softened. Whatever animal did that is long gone. You're safe. She nodded, but she didn't feel safe. Something was wrong. The dreams, the way Kai seemed so right in her arms until he didn't. The way she felt constantly watched. Hey, it's okay, Daniel soothed, embracing her. I'm here. Lina barely suppressed a laugh. What could Danny do against a wolf? He'd be just as powerless as Issa. What's wrong? He asked, gently stroking her face. You used to tell me everything. Now you barely talk. Daniel kissed the corner of her lips. Lina flinched in surprise. What are you doing? Footsteps in the hallway. Elisa stood in the doorway. Sharp gaze. Lina tried to pull away, but Daniel held her tighter. Just hugging my best friend, he said. She's not feeling well. He embraced Lina in what should look brotherly, but it didn't. Elisa's gaze lingered on his hands at Lina's waist, but she said nothing. So, are you driving us to the beach today? Elisa asked. Before Lina could answer, a piercing scream sounded outside. They rushed to the driveway. Their mother stood frozen in shock. At her feet lay an enormous dead moose. Around the body, no fewer than a dozen dead rabbits, forming a grotesque circle. An offering, a gift, something dark and primal. Elisa and Daniel rushed to their mother, but Lina remained motionless. She knew with absolute certainty, this is for me. Something warm unfurled in her chest. Satisfaction. Pride. Her lips parted. Breathing quickened. The incredible magnitude of what was happening. This was completely terrible. Their mother sobbed hysterically, but not to Lina. To her growing horror, she felt deep satisfaction. Pleasure at this display of power. She felt she was being hunted, and something powerful enough to provide for her so abundantly was watching from the forest edge. She felt him, those blue eyes, waiting. Lina turned toward the forest, peering into the shadows, and saw. The white wolf stood between the trees, motionless, majestic, looking straight at her. Their gazes met across space, and something clicked into place. Recognition, connection, promise. You. It's always been you. Chapter 13. 2 days until the wedding. Lina paced her room like a caged animal. Restless energy flowed through her veins, refusing to calm. Rain lashed the window. Wind howled in tune with the storm inside her. The bed was a mess. Sheets tangled and damp after a night of dreams. Kai. Always Kai. She hadn't seen him since that strange meeting in his study, but he consumed her thoughts entirely. Those incredible blue eyes, the way his fingers touched her ankle, how his voice penetrated her bones. This is insane, she whispered to her reflection. Dark circles under her eyes, skin flushed with unnatural heat. She barely recognized herself. Wedding preparations blurred around her in a fog. Elisa snapped at everyone, saving her sharpest words for Lina. Daniel lingered nearby, seeking refuge from his bride's hysterics. His touches lingered longer than they should. What once would have thrilled her now left her cold, because her heart, mind, and soul belonged to someone else. Kai. His name pulsed within her like a second heartbeat. She obsessively replayed their meetings, searching for something elusive. The only distraction, a flicker of white between the trees. The wolf watched from the forest edge. She'd tried to follow it, but it always disappeared. Part of her wanted to go into the forest at night. Find it. The memory of Issa Lisnaya's fate stopped her. Or was it fear? Or something else? A knock on the door made her jump. Lina! The florist needs to talk about the bouquets. Elisa's voice, demanding, impatient. Lina automatically responded, though everything resisted. The next hours passed in a haze. She approved arrangements, confirmed place settings, weathered Elisa's anxiety storms. Rain intensified, trapping them inside with mounting tension. A mistake. Elisa stared at her phone. Rain on my wedding day. This can't be happening. Daniel tried to soothe, only made it worse. Remember the Petersons' tent last spring? It collapsed right on. Lina felt the walls closing in, air too thick to breathe. Kai flashed in her consciousness, not as she'd last seen him, but from the dream, looking at her with recognition and love. "I need air," she blurted out, interrupting Elisa. "In this weather?" their mother scoffed. Lina didn't answer, already heading for the door, grabbing keys. "Lina, you can't drive in this weather!" Daniel's voice behind her. She didn't stop. Rain instantly soaked her through. She jerked open the car door, climbing inside, gripped the wheel like a lifeline. She didn't need to think. Her body knew the way. Northwind Manor. To Kai. Lightning split the sky as she pulled up, illuminating the stone facade like a Gothic novel. The vision vanished as darkness swallowed the house again, broken only by the warm glow of windows. She tumbled from the car, barely noticing the rain, clothes plastered to her skin. The front door opened before she reached it. The butler stood in warm light. "Mr. Northern?" Her voice unfamiliar to herself. He assessed her appearance, wild, wet, desperate. He frowned. "Miss, I'm afraid—" "Lina!" Eric came into view, surprise on her face. "Has Elisa gone crazy again? I promise the weather will improve." Lina barely heard. She scanned the space behind, searching for the one who wasn't there. "Are you okay?" Era moved closer, concern in her eyes. "Come inside." Lina let herself be led into a warm sitting room. Era sat her down, handed her a cup of hot tea. The butler whispered "Milady" before leaving. Era shrugged. British. Very formal. Lina nodded absently. Wind howled outside, rattling windows. "Is your brother home?" The question burst out. Era hesitated. "No, he's out." She studied Lina. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Reality crashed down. What am I doing here? What would I have said if he'd been here? "Hi, are you leaving dead animals for me? Are you a werewolf? Do we know each other from a past life?" Era squeezed her hand. "There are plenty of other fish in the sea." "What?" "Your sister's fiancé." A meaningful look. "I know right now it seems impossible. But you'll survive." Lina stared at her. Daniel. She hadn't thought about him in days. The absurdity of the situation crashed down suddenly. Laughter escaped. Hysterical. Wild. Era watched with wide eyes. "I must look insane," Lina gasped. "A bit," Era admitted. Lina sobered, breathing deeply. "I haven't been myself lately." She hesitated. "Your brother told me about the beach. About what happened." Era's expression hardened. "He told you?" She studied Lina. "What exactly did he say?" Weariness in her voice. Lina hurried to explain. "Not much. Just that someone died. I got curious. I looked it up." Era relaxed slightly, but the openness in her eyes disappeared. "I read it was an animal attack," Lina said carefully. "Apparently," Era answered neutrally. But Lina noticed tension in her posture, wariness in every movement. "I know this sounds crazy," Lina continued, unable to stop. "But since I came here, I've been seeing a wolf." Pause, afraid to speak it aloud. "What?" Era prompted. "A wolf." The confession fell between them like a stone. "I see it everywhere. The first time it led me out of the forest. Since then, it's always there. Even when I don't see it, I know it's watching, and I keep finding dead animals." "What does it look like?" Era's voice was deathly calm. Lina flinched at the sudden intensity. Big, white, and the eyes, blue as ice. Era jumped to her feet, turned sharply toward the windows, lashed by storm. "Damn," she muttered. "Era?" Alarm rose. Era turned, eyes dark with fear. "You need to leave. Right now." Before Lina could react, the lights flickered and went out. "Too late," Era whispered. She grabbed Lina's hand, dragging her toward the front door. "The storm. Roads might be flooded." Headlights pierced the rain. Twin beams cutting through darkness. Era slammed the door. "He's here." "Who?" Lina's pulse accelerated. Era clenched her jaw. "My brother." She disappeared into another room. Returned with a small vial. "Quick, rub this on yourself." "What?" Lina stared. certain they'd both lost their minds. Just do it, Lina obeyed. Sharp herbal scent filled her lungs. Era dragged her up the stairs. Whatever happens, don't leave the room. Era, what's going on? Era grabbed her shoulders, fingers bruising. Lock the door. Don't open it no matter what you hear. A low voice sounded below. Kai. Lina's heart betrayed her. Everything will be fine, Era said, but her face said otherwise. Then she vanished. Lina was left alone in darkness, listening as the voices of her fate argued below. Chapter 14. Locked hours passed. Darkness wrapped the house like a shroud. Thunder subsided. Now only distant rumbling remained. Rain still drummed relentlessly on the windows of the unfamiliar bedroom. Lina sat on the edge of the canopy bed, fear replaced by numbness, confusion. What threw Era into such panic? Why am I being hidden like a secret? Everything seemed unreal, someone else's nightmare. She rubbed her arms. The sharp herbal scent of the oil still lingered on her skin. Sage, lavender, something bitter. Era knows about the wolf. That was the only explanation. She instantly recognized the description. Got scared. But if she knows about the wolf and is afraid her brother will find me, realization crashed down. Kai is the wolf? If so, does that mean he killed Isa Lesnaya 10 years ago? Is that why Era's so desperate to hide me? A floorboard creaked outside the door. Lina froze. She was alone in an unfamiliar house with a potential killer. The only person who could protect his sister. I need to leave. The rain had let up. Roads might be flooded, but better to risk it than wait here like prey. What if Era's in on it? What if this is a trap? Decision made. Lina slid off the bed, removed her shoes, carefully unlocked the door. The corridor was dark, but light came from below. And voices. Era's light tone, alternating with something deeper. Rough, rumbling. It made her breathless. Lina moved silently toward the stairs. From the landing, she could see the dining room. Kai sat at the head of a long table, Era beside him. He looked strange, skin pale, slumped, head resting heavily on his knuckles, as if barely holding on. Something tightened in Lina's chest. Concern. Maybe drink more? Era insisted, pushing a glass forward. You need to sleep. Kai nodded slowly. All right. Voice hoarse, drowsy. Not at all the commanding tone she remembered. Era poured dark liquid into the glass. He lifted it with a trembling hand, drank it down. Lina leaned forward, straining to see. The step under her foot creaked betrayingly, a sound breaking the silence like a gunshot. Era's head snapped up. Their gazes met. Is someone there? Kai asked, but didn't lift his eyes. Voice distant, foggy. Lina froze. Run or stay? Era looked at her with a long gaze, then barely shook her head. Don't move. Don't make noise. Kai rested his head on his hand again, eyes closed. No one's there, Era said softly. Just the house settling. He nodded, accepting the explanation. Era stood, carefully touching his shoulder. Come on. You need to lie down. Kai let her lead him from the room. Their footsteps faded into the depths of the house. Lina waited, counted heartbeats. When silence became absolute, she descended the stairs, soundlessly, quickly, to the front door, hand on the handle. Where are you going? Era's voice behind her. Lina turned. Home, I need to... He's asleep, Era interrupted. You're safe. For now. Heavy pause. But not for long. She looked at her watch. A few hours left, maybe less. Until what? Lina whispered. Era met her gaze. Until the medicine stops working, and he wakes up. Fear gripped her throat. What are you giving him? Sedative, very strong. Era ran a tired hand over her face. We've been giving it to him for weeks. To suppress instincts. She didn't finish. But Lina understood. Wolf instincts. He knows about you, Era continued quietly. His wolf knows, and wants you. Lina pressed her hand to her chest. Heart pounded so hard it seemed it would burst. But his human side doesn't remember? Era nodded. The curse. It divides them. The human can't remember what the wolf knows. She looked at the stairs. But the division is weakening. Soon the boundaries will blur completely. And then? Then he'll come for you, Era answered simply. And nothing will stop him. Lina returned to the room, locked the door, sat on the bed hugging her knees. Need to leave. Right now. But her body wouldn't obey. Something held her here. Not fear, not curiosity. Something else. Deeper. Desire. She wanted to see him. Talk to him. Wanted him to remember her. This is madness. Lina lay on the bed without undressing, closed her eyes. Just rest a minute. Then I'll leave. She woke to a scraping sound, low, guttural. Her eyes opened in darkness. The room was bathed in moonlight. At the door, a silhouette, large, white, with eyes glowing gold. The wolf. Lina should have screamed, run, but she couldn't move. The wolf approached closer, step by step, its muzzle lowered to her face, warm breath on her skin. You came, she whispered. Not a question, a statement. The wolf whined softly, a sound almost human, full of longing, pain, desire. Lina reached out her hand, buried her fingers in thick fur. I know you, she said. I'm not afraid. The wolf pressed into her hand, then jumped onto the bed, a movement so smooth the mattress barely gave. It lay beside her, enormous body pressed to her side, head resting on her stomach. The weight should be uncomfortable, but instead it felt like completion, as if a missing piece had returned to its place. Lina stroked its head, fingers gliding through silky fur. Kai, she whispered, because she knew absolutely. This is him. The wolf closed its eyes, and beneath her palm, something began to change. Chapter 15. Awakening. When Lina came to, the first thing she felt was warmth. Strong arms wrapped around her waist, a solid chest rising and falling behind her back. She didn't need to look to know who it was. Her body recognized instinctively, as if they'd spent 1,000 such mornings. Lina turned. Kai slept soundly beside her, his face calmer than she'd ever seen. Her fingers hovered over his cheek, wanting to touch. Kai, she whispered. He didn't stir, breathing deep and even. She tried louder. Kai! Nothing. As if he were in a coma. The sedative. Era said it was very strong. Lina calmed, content just to watch him sleep. I know I love him. The realization didn't shock. It felt like acknowledging a truth that had always existed. She loved both the man and the wolf, because they were two halves of one whole. When he wakes up, I'll tell him. I'll assure him his nature doesn't frighten me, that he doesn't have to pretend. A ray of light broke through a gap in the curtains, fell directly on Kai's face. A quiet groan escaped his lips. His eyes half opened, at first unfocused, then narrowed as they looked at Lina. Hi, she smiled, happiness overflowing. Kai recoiled with a sharp intake of breath. Who are you? Those words. The smile slid off Lina's face. Lina, she answered. I'm Lina. Confusion overwhelmed. Kai surveyed the room. Why? Why are you in my house? Your sister told me to stay, Lina explained, struggling to keep her voice steady. My sister? He repeated, shaking his head. He sat up, leaning against the headboard. How did I get here? You came here, Lina said, trying to stay calm. You were in wolf form. Kai's gaze snapped back to her. His whole body tensed. It's okay, she hastily assured. I don't mind that you're a wolf. Kai stared at her with such complete absence of recognition. She almost doubted her own memories. But there was no other explanation. How he'd appeared in her room, how she'd fallen asleep with a wolf and woken in his embrace. You've been following me all the time, she said, voice becoming defensive. I see you everywhere. In the forest, on the manor grounds. Not the slightest flicker of understanding. He looked at her like a complete stranger. Don't you remember? Lina asked quietly. He clearly didn't. The impassive expression confirmed it. The connection she'd felt, the bond she was so certain existed, suddenly seemed like a cruel illusion. I follow you everywhere? Kai slowly repeated, as if testing each word. Yes, Lina nodded. Since that first day when you found me in the forest. Pause. You didn't want me to know it was you? That's why you pretend not to know me every time? We've met, he asked, fear rising in his voice. We have, Lina whispered, peering at him. Several times. He looked completely lost, as if the ground had vanished from under his feet. But you, he began. Stopped, his expression twisted. But you're human. Lina flinched. Of course I'm human. What else could I be? The question hung on her lips. But before she could speak, the door burst open. Eris stood in the doorway, frozen at the sight. Her gaze darted between them, assessing, calculating. Is everything okay? She asked Kai carefully. No, he answered. Nothing's okay. Heavy silence of resignation. Eris shifted attention to Lina. Lina, her voice carefully controlled. Come here, slowly. Lina looked between them, torn between pain and confusion. She didn't want to leave, wanted to get her wolf back, wanted the peaceful certainty she'd felt a minute ago. Do as she said, Kai's voice calm but commanding. He closed his eyes as if the sight of her caused physical pain. Please! The plea came out with difficulty. Lina couldn't tear her gaze away. As she moved, she noticed his jaw clench, how his face contorted with strain. Slowly, Era warned. Don't rush. You'll provoke him. Lina wanted to object that it sounded insane, but something in Era's insistence made her obey. Kai, she began, unable to leave without trying to reach him once more. His eyes snapped open, and Lina gasped. No more impossible blue. Instead, molten gold, glowing with inner light. I'm sorry, he said hoarsely. Era's hand clamped on Lina's wrist. With surprising strength, she pulled her from the room. They moved quickly through the house, Era practically dragging her. To the front door, to morning light, to a waiting car. Get in, Era ordered, already sliding behind the wheel. Buckle up! Lina mechanically obeyed, her mind still trying to process what happened. As they sped away from the manor, she watched the majestic house recede in the mirror, feeling as if she were leaving part of herself behind. I'm taking you back to your family, Era said, her knuckles white on the wheel. And then, you all need to leave. Not until you tell me what's happening, Lina demanded, finally finding her voice. Era sighed heavily, glanced in the mirror as if checking they weren't being followed. My brother can transform into a wolf, she said, in case that wasn't obvious. Pause. Our whole family can. We're werewolves. Werewolves, Lina repeated. The word felt unreal on her tongue. Wait. So you too? Yes, Era confirmed simply. Information coming too fast. Too much at once. Lina felt dizzy. But the white wolf, the one following me. Yes, that was Kai, Era confirmed grimly. Why does he keep doing it? Lina asked. He acts like he doesn't know me. He doesn't, Era answered. At least, his human side doesn't. Lina froze in silence, stunned. So it's not pretense. His human can't remember me? Exactly, Era confirmed, as if reading her thoughts. But his wolf knows you and craves you. Why? Strange warmth spread through her chest at this confirmation. Because you're his mate, Era said matter-of-factly. His destined half. What does that mean? All werewolves have a fating mate, Era explained. Her voice took on a didactic tone. That one person who completes them. Once they meet, they usually recognize each other instantly, and a bond begins forming. A bond, Lina repeated, remembering the irresistible pull from the first meeting in the forest. A mating bond. Yes, Era nodded. It's a magical connection of souls. Kai's wolf knows you're meant to be his, and wants to claim you. Claim, she echoed. Establish the bond, Era winced. Oh, Lina said quietly, not fully understanding, but feeling excitement. Yes, Era gripped the wheel tighter. That's why, if you don't want to end up like Isa Lesnaya, you'd better get as far from here as possible. The name chilled her blood. Does claiming mean killing? Lina whispered. The dead girl on the beach flashed vividly in her mind. Usually no, Era answered carefully. Claiming means biting. The bite establishes the bond, but you're human, Lina. Her voice hardened. Kai's claim will kill you. That's why you need to leave. because soon his wolf won't be able to restrain itself. He'll claim you no matter the cost, and kill you in the process. Lina sat in stunned silence, horror mixing with strange, treacherous desire. Part of me wants him to claim me. The contradiction made her head spin. Fortunately, Era kept talking. You're human. That means you probably won't feel the bond strongly. Not like we wolves do. She shot a quick glance. But will Kai's claim kill you? That's the only important question. Also, Lina asked the question everything depended on. What will happen to him? Era sighed heavily. Killing humans is forbidden by our laws. If Kai goes feral and claims you, killing you in the process, her voice broke. Then pack law dictates we'll have to kill him. Tears glinted in her eyes. I'll have to kill my own brother for going feral. What's going feral? Lina asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. Feral wolves don't remember their human side, Era explained, voice empty. They're driven by instinct, bloodlust. They seek only carnage and destruction. She squeezed Lina's forearm. Get out of town. Never come back. I'm begging you. Lina watched Era's car disappear around the bend, taking any hope of a bright future with it. Her love for Kai wasn't just forbidden, it was impossible. Deadly dangerous. For both of them. Chapter 16. The Curse. Kai Northern had known about his curse since he learned to speak. His first memory, grandfather being dragged from the house, a snarling creature more beast than man. He remembered his mother's tears, his father's rigid spine, remembered the howl that cut through the night, not from rage, from despair, from finality. He was 4, too young to understand, old enough to fear. By 6, his father had explained everything, in solemn, unyielding tones, the curse of the Northern line, punishment from past generations. They said the first Kai Northern had betrayed a witch who loved him, for a human woman who feared him. Since then, all male heirs were born with the curse. The wolf cannot recognize its mate in human form, cannot remember, cannot perceive correctly. But the wolf knows, recognizes, craves. Young Kai had nodded, not understanding the full horror. The mind goes mad, his father continued, desperate to possess what the human forgets. The human eternally passes by his fate without recognizing. The warning was clear. Never leave Pine Pass. Stay where the risk of meeting your mate is minimal. Most werewolves live their lives never finding their fading halves. Kai could do the same, could live in caution, isolation, could die an old man, sanity intact. In his youth, it hadn't worried him. He'd felt invincible, immortal. Control over the wolf was perfect. How could he lose that iron grip? But it was he who found Issa on the beach. She'd been human. The bite triggered a transformation that so deformed her body it killed her. Though not before she'd experienced excruciating pain. Even after death, her face was still twisted in agony. That image stuck in his mind forever. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her. Now Era's car interrupted his thoughts. She'd returned. From where? Where did she go? He didn't remember. Days blurred. Time slipped away. He transformed and lost hours. Sometimes entire nights. His limbs were heavy with sedatives. He'd been taking them for weeks, suppressing wolf instincts. They left him in a fog, detached from reality. But it was better than the alternative. Now it became clear what was happening. The girl he'd woken up with? Memories almost vanished. Dark curls, warm brown eyes, a name he didn't remember. Her scent already a distant echo, the warmth of her body beside him, like a half-remembered dream. Soon he wouldn't remember her at all. She'd said a name. Pain filled her eyes when he didn't recognize her. The contours of her face blurred, but the pain in her eyes didn't. God, she's my mate. And I can't even remember her name. Kai. Era stood in the doorway, her expression twisted at the sight of him. Pity, concern, fear. Something inside wanted to bare teeth, snarl. Don't need her pity. Don't look at me like that, he said instead. You went to her, Era said quietly. Despite the drugs, Kai tensed. Cold trickled down his spine. To her, his wolf had sought, visited, his mate. The wolf saw, smelled, touched, while he, the human, got oblivion. Though maybe oblivion is kinder. Maybe the wolf suffers more. What's her name? He asked, avoiding Era's gaze. Need to know. Even if I forget again in minutes. Era shifted uncomfortably. Her scent betrayed discomfort. None the less you know, the better. Kai nodded. Though it didn't feel right. Nothing feels right anymore. Skin too tight. She was human, he said. A statement, not a question. Like Issa. I don't want to talk about Issa. Era's voice broke. Tears welled. But Era hadn't been there. She didn't remember what he remembered. The scene forever etched in memory. Issa's body twisted, deformed. The transformation gone horribly wrong. Bones partially shifted. The putrid smell of death, fear, and pain. His father had been there. Embracing. Holding what remained of the woman he'd doomed. They said he'd eventually come to his senses. But only enough to hold the female he'd killed. Kai would never forget the despair in his father's eyes. When he'd begged for death. That's how Kai became Alpha. By killing his grief-stricken feral father, breaking pack law that might one day be used against himself. The wolf inside stirred at the memory. Restless, anxious, wanting out, wanting her. She's gone, Kai asked, knowing exactly who he meant. Yes, Eric confirmed. I told her to leave. Take her family. Kai nodded, pressing his palms to his temples. Headache building. Pressure intensifying with each beat. Era watched with tears in her eyes. Are you okay? He didn't understand the question. What happened? What did I do? Nothing, Era answered quickly. But he felt the lie. What happened? What did the wolf do? Panic in his chest. What if he'd already gone too far? What if history was repeating? You need to sleep all day, Era said instead of answering. I'll bring more potions. Trust me. Kai nodded distantly, unable to focus on words. Against his will, the wolf howled, digging claws into consciousness, desperately trying to break free. Chapter 17. Wedding Morning. The wedding manor buzzed with life. Florists fussed with final arrangements. Catering wheeled in trays. Lina barely crossed the threshold when her mother's voice cut through chaos. There you are, Elena exclaimed. Where have you been? We've been terribly worried. Elisa emerged from the living room, face frowning. Lina began. But her mother interrupted. Not a call, not a note. Your sister's wedding is tomorrow. What were you thinking? We need to leave, Lina said. All of us. Right now. Her mother's expression changed from anger to confusion. What are you talking about? It's not safe here, Lina insisted. There's a dangerous wolf in this area. It will come back. We need to leave before that happens. Silence broken by Elisa's incredulous laugh. A wolf, she repeated. Are you serious? Completely serious, Lina met her sister's gaze. I've seen it. It's been following since we arrived. Following you? Elisa's voice rose. Because everything has to revolve around Lina, right? Even my wedding. This isn't about the wedding, Lina snapped. It's about safety. Safety from an imaginary wolf? Elisa moved closer, face reddening. Just admit it. You can't stand that Danny chose me, that I'm finally getting what you wanted. The accusation stung. This has nothing to do with Danny. Please, Elisa scoffed. You've been in love with him since childhood. Maybe I was, Lina admitted quietly. But this isn't about that now. Then what? Their mother interjected. Because to me, this looks like an attempt to ruin your sister's day. It's not a story, Lina's voice rose. I saw a white wolf. Huge. Dangerous. Oh, a white wolf, Elisa mocked. How dramatic. What's next? Does it talk? Enough! Their father's voice rang out unusually firm. Viktor Raevsky entered from the study. The family peacemaker. His intervention silenced everyone. Dad, Lina pleaded, believe me, we're not safe. We're perfectly safe, their mother dismissed. The groundskeeper checked the property after the animal incidents, found no evidence of a wolf. Because the wolf's owner is its master, Lina muttered. Elisa threw up her hands. She's talking nonsense. She just wants attention. That's not fair. Fair! Elisa laughed bitterly. You know what's not fair? My whole life I've had to tiptoe around, trying not to hurt the adopted child's feelings, so she wouldn't feel unwanted. The room seemed to tilt. What did you just say? Lina's voice barely audible. Elisa looked between her parents and sister. Nobody cares that Lina's adopted, but you always tell me to be careful, so she won't feel unwelcome. Those words pierced armor, confirming what Lina had always felt but never acknowledged, the sense of alienation that had haunted her whole life. I'm adopted? She asked. Looking at her parents, Elisa looked surprised. Everyone knows that. I thought you... I'm sorry, Lina, her father said quietly. We were going to tell you when you were older, but the right moment never came. Elisa stepped back, realizing what she'd done lit up her face. I didn't know. I thought you knew. Well, I wasn't. Lina's voice broke. Elisa turned, running up the stairs. A disaster, she cried. First dead animals, then the weather, Danny's strange behavior, and now this. My wedding is ruined. Their mother ran after her. Daniel, frozen in place, hesitated, then followed both women upstairs, leaving Lina alone with her father. Heavy silence hung between them, filled with decades of unspoken truth. Is it true? Lina finally asked. I'm adopted? Her father breathed deeply. Yes. We found you in the forest when we were vacationing nearby. You were very small, maybe 5 or 6 years old. No one around. No trace of where you came from. Lina struggled to comprehend. You found me in the forest, abandoned. He nodded. Called rangers, police. They searched for days, but no one reported a missing child. We'd been trying to have children for years without success. It seemed like fate. So you just kept me? Not just, her father corrected gently. We fought for you. Hearings, visits, formal adoption process. But yes, we kept you. Pause. And then, not 3 months after bringing you home, your mother found out she was pregnant with Elisa. The miracle child, Lina muttered. We should have told you, her father admitted, but your mother was afraid. That it would hurt. That I'd feel unwanted, Lina finished. Bitter laughter escaped. Good job. I need to be alone, she said. Need time to think. She turned toward the stairs, desperate to escape. Lina, her father called behind her. She didn't look back. Lina sank onto the edge of her bed. Thoughts overwhelming. Adopted. Found in the forest as a baby. No wonder I always felt like an outsider. She literally was one. And now, with everything else falling apart, she learns this truth. I'll process it later, she whispered. Right now I need to go. Even if her family insisted on staying, for Kai's sake I need to leave. If he comes, if he tries to claim, and she dies, Era will have to kill him. I can't let that happen. She worked quickly, grabbed necessities. A quick shower washed off Kai's lingering scent from their embrace, though nothing could wash away the memory of how he didn't recognize her. The house had grown quieter. Wedding preparations paused after the family drama. Lina made it to the front door. Relief flooded as she stepped outside. Where are you headed? The voice startled her. Daniel sat on the porch, glass of amber liquid in hand. Need some rest, Lina answered, trying to walk past. Daniel stood unsteadily, blocking her path. Can't blame you after Elisa's meltdown, he laughed. Are you drunk? Lina asked, noticing glassy eyes. It's barely noon. Just a little, he admitted, shrugging. Appropriate under the circumstances. He moved closer. Lina suppressed the urge to step back. Sorry about Elisa, he said, words slightly slurred. So embarrassed by her behavior. You'd never act like that. He stepped nearer. Leaving? His hand grabbed her wrist. Where? Away, Lina said, unwilling to explain. Instead, she hugged him quickly, hoping to end the conversation. I'm happy for you both. Congratulations. Danny's face pressed into her hair. He inhaled deeply. You smell different, he whispered. Danny, Lina said firmly, trying to pull back. You're drunker than I thought. I made a mistake, he said, not letting go. What do you mean? It was always you. His arms tightened. I was just too blind to see. Lina broke free. What are you talking about? Tomorrow you're marrying my sister. We can fix this, Daniel insisted, reaching again. I love you, Lina. I think I always have. I was just scared. Maybe of how much you mean to me. Lina shook her head in disbelief. You're just nervous. You always get like this when nervous. It's not nerves, Daniel argued, following her. It's clarity. For the first time, I see what was there all along. We could be happy. There is no we, Lena's voice sharpened. You're marrying Elisa. But you love me, he insisted, grabbing her hand again. I know you do. I can't lose that. Before Lina could respond, Daniel lunged forward, lips seeking hers with drunken determination. She turned her head, pushed at his chest. A low, threatening growl froze them both in place. The white wolf stood at the edge of the driveway, huge and terrible in afternoon sunlight. Rumbling rose in its broad chest. What the? Daniel whispered. The wolf's real. Don't move, Lina hissed. The wolf stepped forward. Each step measured, muscles coiled under white fur. Its gaze remained fixed on Daniel, as if Lina didn't exist. Hey, what do we do? Daniel whispered, terror in his voice. Kai, Lina called quietly, desperately trying to reach the part that might recognize. Please. The wolf's ears twitched at the sound of his name, but its advance didn't slow. Instead, golden eyes grew brighter, wilder, and then it lunged, in a whirl of white fur and fangs, straight for Daniel's throat. Chapter 18. Sacrifice. Lina threw herself between Daniel and the wolf, arms outstretched, body a living shield. Kai's massive form knocked her back. Her spine hit Daniel's chest. The wolf's momentum sent all three tumbling onto gravel, tangling limbs in a heap. Don't hurt him, she screamed, not knowing if she was begging for Danny's life or trying to save Kai from consequences. The wolf loomed over them, fangs bared in a snarl that vibrated in bones. Golden eyes locked on Daniel, murderous intent in every tensed muscle. Danny's panicked breathing wheezed in Lena's ear. He scrambled backward, kicking up gravel. Lina reached out her arms, wrapped them around the wolf's neck, pulling it closer, not pushing away, fur under her fingers hot. Alive. He means nothing, she whispered fiercely. Nothing. Don't do this, please. The wolf's attention shifted, nostrils flared, inhaling her scent. The snarl softened to a low rumble. She felt it in her chest. The front door burst open. Voices confused, frightened, panicking. What the? God, Lina! She didn't turn, ignored them. The world narrowed to the wolf before her, its massive head lowered to her throat. Breath scorched her skin. Fangs grazed the tender spot where pulse hammered wildly. This should terrify me, but it didn't. The contact sent a wave of heat through her entire body, a feeling so deep that a quiet moan escaped her lips. Get off her! Their mother's voice shrieked closer, a dull thud. Something struck the wolf's side. Their mother stood wielding a garden umbrella pole like a bat. The wolf pulled back with a furious roar, lunging at the new threat. Time slowed. Lina watched muscles preparing to attack her mother. A blur of dark fur burst from the trees, crashed into Kai's side. Two wolves rolled across gravel, snarling, teeth clashing, tumbling. The newcomer smaller, more graceful, with familiar dark eyes that flashed toward Lina momentarily. Era. God, there's more! Elisa screamed from the porch. Figures emerged from the forest, wolves of various colors and sizes surrounding the fighting pair. One broke away, racing toward them. Its form writhed, shifting as it ran. Between heartbeats, it became a woman, naked except for an amulet at her neck. Run! Era shouted. And get her out of here now! Hands grabbed Lina, mother on one side, Elisa on the other, dragging her toward the car where their father sat behind the wheel, engine already running. She fought their grip, gaze riveted to the white wolf, fighting not just Era, but two others. No! Let go! She screamed. But they were stronger. Panic gave them strength. Get in the car! Her mother ordered, shoving her onto the back seat. Elisa behind her. Then Daniel, practically diving in, slamming the door. The car lurched forward, tires spewing gravel. Lina threw herself at the window. pressed palms to glass, the scene receding. Kai stood in a ring of wolves, outnumbered but defiant. White fur stained with blood, his or his opponent's. "Drive faster," their mother ordered from the front seat. "What the hell is happening?" Daniel shouted, face ashen, eyes wild with horror. "That woman, she turned into—" "We all saw it." "Get yourself together," Elisa snapped, though her own voice trembled. "This is a crisis." Lina ignored them both, pounding on the window, gaze fixed on rapidly shrinking figures. "Turn back," she screamed. "They'll kill him. We have to go back." Her pleas went unanswered. The car raced down the road away from the manor, trees rushing past, a green blur. Through the rear window, a flash of white appeared on the road. Kai. Breath mixed hope and terror. The white wolf raced after the car, steps covering distance with incredible speed. More wolves pursued. 5, maybe 6. "We're being followed," her father shouted, checking the mirror. "Step on it." Their mother pulled a gun from under the seat, one Lina had never seen. The sight of the weapon threw her. "Stop the car," she screamed, throwing herself at the front seat. "No, don't you dare hurt him." Elisa grabbed her arms, pulling her back. "What does it want?" she asked. "Why is it chasing you?" "It needs to claim me," Lina answered without thinking, gaze not leaving the white figure behind. "It should what?" their mother interrupted, pressing harder on the gas. "No way! No creature is getting my daughter." The car swerved sharply around a curve, tires squealing. Lina's shoulder slammed into the door, but she barely felt the impact. Her entire being focused on the wolf, on Kai, on the need to reach him before it was too late. "Mom, please," she begged. Strange heat built at the base of her skull, spreading down her spine. "He needs me. They'll kill him." "He needs to be killed," Daniel shouted, hysteria in his voice. Something broke inside Lina at those words. A growl, not human, not quite, tore from her throat. She whirled on Daniel, teeth bared, a sound primal, predatory, nothing like anything she'd made before. Elisa recoiled, eyes wide with shock. "Lina, your eyes—" Lina didn't wait to hear the rest. New instinct took over, certainty transcending thought. In one fluid motion, she lunged at Elisa, grabbed the door handle, flung the door open with strength she didn't know she had. "Lina, no!" her mother screamed. The door flew wide, the rushing world beyond, a blurred green-gray mass. Time slowed. Lina met her mother's gaze in the mirror, saw horror there, fear, incomprehension. Then she jumped from the moving car. The impact was brutal. The world spun in a kaleidoscope of sky and earth. She rolled across asphalt, again and again. Pain lanced through her body, but beneath it, overcoming it, certainty, making agony irrelevant. Lina stopped at the roadside, gasping. Air wouldn't enter. Sky spinning, clouds whirling in nauseating circles. In the distance, she heard the squeal of brakes, her mother's hysterical screams. Then, a shadow fell over her. The white wolf stood above her, massive head lowered to her face, whining softly. Its tongue licked blood from her cheek, her forehead, her scraped palms. Golden eyes searched hers, full of heartbreaking pain. "I'm okay," she whispered, though she really wasn't. Her body was a symphony of pain, but nothing mattered. Nothing except the wolf, except Kai. She reached out her hand, tangled fingers in the thick fur at his neck, pulling him closer. The pack was approaching. She heard them, felt their presence like pressure in the air. Their gazes met, gold and brown. In that moment, Lina felt what Kai felt. Desperation. Need. Certainty that this was right. That they were made for each other. His need became her need. Burned in her blood. Rewrote her DNA. She pulled him closer, guiding his muzzle to the curve of her neck, where pulse beat frantically against thin skin. "Go ahead," she begged, tilting her head, fully exposing her throat. Behind Kai, the pack emerged from the trees, wolves racing toward them. Too late to stop what had begun. Behind Lina, her family stumbled from the car. Her mother and father's screams, distant background noise. Between them, the moment stretched. She felt teeth touch her neck. Testing, hesitating. The touch sent an electric charge through her nerves. Pleasure so sharp it bordered on pain. "Please," she whispered, voice trembling. The wolf's jaw opened wider. Fangs pressed into flesh with greater force. Lina's arms gripped his fur, holding tight, not letting him pull away. Sharp teeth pierced skin. Bright, blinding pain flared white-hot through her entire body. Chapter 19. Transformation. Blood. His mouth filled with hot, metallic, sickly sweet human blood. The taste snapped Kai back to consciousness like a bucket of ice water. The wolf mind receded. Human consciousness flooded in, sharpened, cleared. The shift happened abruptly. Bones cracked, muscles tore, fur melted, fusing with skin. One moment wolf. Next, Kai kneeling beside the woman, with dark curls, blood seeping from puncture wounds on her neck. Beneath him, rough asphalt. In his nostrils, the scent of fear, sweat, blood. In his ears, screams, sobs, approaching wolves, and something else, something cutting. Pain pierced consciousness like a blade. Not his own, someone else's, hers. He felt his mate's pain, agony. Horror crashed down when recognition came. No, no, Lina. The words scraped his throat. The curse shattered like glass. Memories flooded like a river. Lina's wide brown eyes when she'd found him in the forest. Her uncertain smile when he'd bandaged her ankle. Lina in his dreams, in his thoughts. His blood. His mate. The woman he was destined for. The woman he'd just sentenced to death. God, what have I done? His voice trembled. Her body convulsed in his arms. Blood bubbled from her lips. She struggled to breathe. He knew what was happening. Had seen it before with Issa. The bite triggers transformation in humans. But their bodies can't withstand the changes. Bones break. Organs rupture. Minds shatter from pain. They die. Always die. And he'd just doomed Lina to this fate. His mate. This woman. "I'm sorry," he gasped, pressing his forehead to hers as she agonized. "I'm so sorry." Her eyes briefly opened, bright and scattered with fever. No recognition, only blind pain. He'd killed her. Realization, like a knife to the gut. Kill the other half of his soul. "Kai!" Era's voice broke through anguish. She stood several feet away, transformed back to human, jacket draped over her shoulders. "You have to let her go." Behind her, the pack circled, some still in wolf form, others hastily dressed, and behind them, Lina's family tumbled from the car. Faces twisted with horror and grief. "She needs a hospital!" her mother screamed, lunging forward, but her husband held her back. "Give her back! What have you done to her?" "She won't make it to a hospital," Era said firmly, but compassionately. "The transformation has started. It's too late." "What does that mean?" Lina's father repeated. "She won't survive," Era answered. "She's human. No human has survived transformation." Kai barely heard them, completely focused on Lina. Through the newly formed bond, he felt her pain as his own, fire consuming from within. "I need to end it quickly," an elder pack member said quietly. "Before it gets worse, it would be mercy." Kai shook his head, won't allow it. Can't. "No," he stated, strength in the word. Unmistakable alpha authority. "Everyone, pack and humans." He rose to his feet, pressing Lina to his chest. "She's mine. I'll help her survive this." "Kai," Era began more softly, "no human has yet survived." "Lina will survive." Certainty in his voice, brooking no argument. Lina's father stepped forward, shrugging off his long coat. "Here," he said, extending it with trembling hands. "Please take it. Help her if you can." Kai nodded, letting the man drape the coat over his shoulders. Human modesty, least of concerns. But the gesture meant something. "I'm taking her to the manor," he told Era. "Keep them here. Explain what you can." Without waiting for a response, he turned and ran, Lina's limp form secure in his arms. Each step sent new waves of agony through the bond. But he didn't slow. The manor loomed ahead, majestic against the pre-sunset sky. Kai burst through the front door, frightening the staff. "East wing!" he barked at the housekeeper. "Prepare a room now!" The woman nodded and hurried ahead. He followed, carrying Lina, her breathing becoming increasingly labored. The bedroom was large. Heavy curtains blocked light. Thick walls muffled sounds. Kai carefully laid Lina on the bed. Her body immediately arched in a spasm of pain. A broken scream tore from her lips. "Leave," he told the hovering staff. "All of you." They instantly obeyed. The door closed with a soft click. Alone with his beloved, Kai embraced the writhing Lina. "Lina," he whispered, pressing his forehead to hers. "I'm here. I'm with you." Her eyes opened slightly, foggy with pain and fever. "Kai," she called, not with lips, but through the bond. Words sounded in his mind. "Yes," he said, heart clenching. "I'm here." A ghost of a smile touched Lina's lips. Before a new wave of pain twisted her face, her back arched impossibly. A scream ripped from her throat. The door burst open. "Kai!" Era rushed in. "Let us—" "I said leave," he snarled, not looking up. "Kai, she's in pain. She won't survive. You need to—" "I said leave!" The command echoed through the room. Era retreated toward the door, face full of sorrow. "If she dies," she began quietly. "If she dies," Kai interrupted, "I want you to kill me. That's my last order as your alpha." Era's face contorted, but she nodded once, then slipped from the room. Lina convulsed again, spine bent at an angle that would break an ordinary person. Kai supported her, arms gentle but firm, guiding her through the pain. "Breathe, Lina," he instructed, reaching for her through the bond. "Don't fight it. Let it take over." Their eyes met, wide with terror and agony. "I know it hurts," he said, pressing lips to her forehead. "But fighting only makes it worse. You need to surrender. Let your body change." Another spasm shook her body, stronger than before. Kai felt the pain as his own. His body empathically mirrored suffering through the bond. He probed deeper, found the core of her consciousness, where terror and resistance raged. "Listen to your wolf," he whispered in her ear, visualizing the connection, a golden thread linking them, pulsing with life. Then a presence appeared, awakening deep within Lina, ancient and wild, her wolf. "There it is," he encouraged. "Let it take over." Lina briefly responded. Breathing became slightly steadier, eyes cleared, but then a terrible crack filled the room, bones breaking under the strain of transformation. Lina screamed, sound inhuman in agony. Another crack. Her body began distorting. "No," Kai moaned, pressing her closer. Through the bond, he felt consciousness fading, slipping away as pain overwhelmed. "Please," he begged. "I love you. Don't leave me." He buried his face in her neck, inhaling her scent, once bright and vibrant, now tinged with copper of blood, and the acrid smell of approaching death. He pressed lips to the bite mark, tasting salt, iron, despair, and then, instead of skin, there was fur. Soft, silver-gray fur. Broken bones aligned, muscles rebuilt. Kai pulled back, saw a sleek gray wolf with familiar brown eyes. "You did it," he whispered. A sob of relief tore from his chest. He embraced the wolf around the neck, burying his face in fur. The wolf pressed against him, movements still uncertain. Then she turned her head. Teeth sank into the junction of Kai's neck and shoulder. He gasped. Vision darkened momentarily. When he opened his eyes, the wolf was gone. In its place lay Lina, human again, naked and trembling, but alive. Their eyes met, mixing hope and uncertainty. "I'm Lina," she said quickly, as if afraid he wouldn't recognize her. Kai made a frightened sound. He cupped her face in his palms. "I know," he whispered breathlessly. "I remember." Their first kiss, tasting salt and blood, triumph of endings and beginnings, and everything between. Embracing her, his mate, his miracle, Kai knew with absolute certainty. The curse that had haunted his line for generations ended here, broken by love strong enough to defy fate itself. Epilogue. 4 years later. The midwife urged, face concentrated. One more. Come on! Lina suppressed the scream tearing from her throat. Kai's hand gripped hers, his presence and support through the bond. You're doing so well, he whispered, kissing her temple. In Lina's head everything flashed. How they got here. Before that day when they discovered she was born a werewolf. Her wolf nature had been hidden by the curse haunting the northern line. Her biological parents had abandoned her, believing she had no wolf essence. A terrible shame for their kind. Does it bother you? Kai asked when he learned. That your parents abandoned you? No, she answered. The Revskis are my family. They raised me, loved me, even when they didn't understand. The revelation explained so much. Why she healed quickly. Why strong smells disturbed her. Why being cooped up made her restless. Now, she knew who she was. Another contraction hit. She drew strength from Kai, channeling wolf endurance, and pushed one last time. A cry split the air, tiny, indignant. Perfect. A boy, the midwife announced, laying the screaming infant on Lina's chest. Lina looked at her son. Tears blurred her vision. Small fists waving, small lungs working with incredible force. I want you to know you're wanted, she whispered. Always. Kai made a choked sound beside her, his expression mixing wonder and disbelief. He'd come a long way, too. She remembered his nightmares, how often he'd wake gasping, haunted by memories, how he'd withdrawn in intimate moments, convinced the wolf would hurt her. I killed my own father, he confessed one night. I still feel his blood on my hands. Never want to be that monster. It took months of patience and love to help him believe. The curse truly was lifted. He could love Lina without fear. Later, alone with their son, Kai touched the infant's cheek with reverent tenderness. He's free, he said quietly. The first northern-born in generations without the curse. How can you be sure? Lina asked. Kai smiled. I feel it. The curse died when you completed our bond. You broke the chain. That evening, Kai presented their son to the pack. The Raevskis stood at the front, Lina's father beaming proudly, mother wiping tears. Alisa, who'd wisely broken off her engagement to Daniel months before the wedding, took photos. Silence fell as Kai raised the child. Our son, he announced, the next alpha of Pine Pass, born without the curse that haunted our bloodline for generations. One by one, each wolf threw back their head in submission, paying tribute not to Kai, but to Lina, the mate who had lifted the curse. Their mother gasped quietly, finally understanding her daughter's true place. You gave him life, Kai said later, settling beside the bed. But more than that, you gave him a future, our entire pack. Lina looked at the child, feeling complete. From abandoned infant to mate, from outcast to savior. The journey had come full circle. What shall we name him, she asked. Something new, Kai said, looking forward, not back. Artyom, Lina suggested. It means unharmed, healthy. Artyom, Kai agreed. Hope no longer shadowed by fear. Our strong one, our future. Moonlight streamed through the window. A deep sense of rightness took root in Lina's soul. This is what she was born for. Not to be cursed, but to lift curses. Not to be forgotten, but to be loved. Not to be abandoned, but to create family. A family that bridges the worlds of humans and wolves. The end.